Part 2 of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Putty Patroller toy review. We have already discussed the figure itself, its articulation and overall details, and even mentioned a few oddities that I had noticed about the figure. Also covered was its ability to pop apart at certain points, and that enabling it to be more show accurate to a point. Through that, I was able to discover that the same can be done with the rest of the Rangers, in that the gauntlets, or the gloves and the boots are removable to a point. Again, I stress the issue: do not use excessive force unless you absolutely have to, because I don't really trust these joints to stand up to too much stress, removing and reapplying these parts over and over. That may damage the joints. Moving on from that recap, let's segue into the accessories. As we discovered, we went over the Blade Blaster with the Thunder Slinger, was the first odd accessory. And they've also discovered the other odd accessory being the Power Blaster, which was an amalgam of the 5 Power Rangers weapons, not including Green Ranger's Dragon Dagger, as that was never used in a combination so far as I know. First, let's start with the Thunder Slinger here. Get a little closer to tail. As I said previously, it is a Blade Blaster with the Thunder Slinger attached to the top portion. It is all one molded piece. So far as I can tell, it is a remold of the Blade Blaster with the addition of the Thunder Slinger on the top. I think it's really well done, and for one solid piece, they did a heck of a job molding it. Really well done, although I gotta say it is rather odd that it was packed with a Putty Patroller. Personally, I would have preferred some sort of maybe a weapons pack. Could have been included with Zord. They could have made Alpha 5 a single pack by himself. There's other things they could have done with it, but what we got is what we got. The next weapon, though, let's go into a little bit of detail about this, will be the Power Blaster. If you recall from season 1 of the show, when a Megazord wasn't necessarily required to defeat the enemy, but the episode was running out of time for the afternoon, the Rangers would hurry up and group their individual weapons together into creating the Power Blaster. What that would involve would be the Black Ranger first calling out the name of his weapon, the Power Axe. That would form the base of the Power Blaster, as can be seen here. Definitely not the same mold. It is not the individual molds smushed together. It's similar. I don't know how well you can see it for sure. But like I said, it is one combined mold. Following that would be called out the Power Bow, and that would lay across the upper portion of the Power Axe, similar to this fashion here. Try to get my fingers out of the way here. Therefore forming your framework in order to attach the next components. On the inner sides here you have the 2 halves of the Power Lance, which with this release we've already established that the 2 halves do not separate. It is still one molded piece. One thing I did notice here, a drastic change in the mold to the Power Lance. I don't know how well you can see it here. I'll move the Power Dagger out of the way. As you can see, the blade is severely compromised. That's probably a result of this being one solid molded piece. They probably didn't have a way to get as much detail in there without compromising the part in whole. But you can kind of see there what I'm talking about. It's close, and it works for the combination, but as a standalone, I would hate to have that as the Power Lance. Next would be the Power Daggers. If you recall, they were on the outer sides of the Power Blaster here. They didn't suffer quite as badly. They stayed pretty well intact. They were closer to the edges. Not as sharp on the detail, but still acceptable. Same size. It's all black plastic, so it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to try to get some glare on here for you so you can see it stand out a little better. But overall, not bad. And then the last component, wherever I set it, here's the stupid thing, the power sword, which was the Red Ranger. The Red Ranger's weapon. Same length, similar detail. I gotta say, one thing I did notice about the Power Blaster is a select few of the symbols were kept. Out of the 5 symbols on the weapons, 2 were kept. Up top here you can kind of make it out here. The Tyrannosaurus symbol, as can be seen on the single pack. You see the crest there in the hilt of the sword. As well as the symbol on the power axe. Let me find the axe here. For the Mastodon insignia. You know how I'll show up and try to back it up here so you can see what I'm talking about. They did keep those in the molding, so they at least made that effort to preserve as much of the individuality, I suppose, as was possible by creating this. Overall, I gotta say again, it was odd to pack it with a Putty Patroller, but I'm glad we got it nonetheless. Decent weapon. Although the one weird thing is, I gotta say, I feel sorry for the 6-year-old that gets this for Christmas, because he's gonna have a Putty Patroller with these monstrous freaking hands, who holds the Power Rangers weapons sideways, due to the shape of his hand and the size of his hand not being able to grasp the power axe properly, and a weird looking blade blaster. That's going to confuse the heck out of the kid. He's not going to see putties fighting like this on the show, and it's just going to be a confusing thing for little kids, which kind of brings me to the point where I think this line is geared more toward collectors than it is little kids. Once the show airs, that may change. They may release later figures with alterations. It's hard to say. One thing I did neglect to mention is the fact that he has the larger hands. As I recall, those were present on the Lord Zed edition putties from Season 2. I don't recall Rita's putties necessarily having the larger hands. Or actually necessarily the eyebrows either, now that I notice them. Overall, I give the pack a 9 out of 10. It's kind of an awkward rating to give this, considering it's rather unique packaging combination. But the fact that we got the Power Blaster and a Blade Blaster with the Thunder Slinger to be able to use with the Rangers, as well as a generic Putty Patroller, that does pop apart into separate components, to be more show accurate. That was an outstanding idea. Which at first I thought was unique to the putty, but I'm not going to go buying more Rangers, or whatnot in case something breaks, which I'm afraid might happen. The only downside I can think of to this is if you want a troop build, be ready to have like 8 or 9 Power Blasters and a buttload of Thunder Slingers. I wish they would have had some sort of maybe 2-pack for troop building of the putties with no necessary accessories. And Bandai or anybody responsible, if you're watching this, that idea with like the wrecking ball hand for the putties. If you did do any sort of a putty special gift pack or something, that would be the ideal accessory to include with those. Would be the wrecking ball hand to interchange with this. But yeah, overall I felt this was odd, but a good effort. They really tried all this, and we got a lot out of this pack. It's a good figure, solid weapons, and good design overall, and I'm glad to finally have a complete Power Blaster. This has been Moroni Prime, once again, wasting your time. TTFN.